Good morning. Welcome to our continuing coverage of Decision 2022. This is AM Live. My name is Zainab Ismail. Now, for the next 14 days, all eyes will be on the Supreme Court should the Azimio La Umoja One Kenya coalition file a petition challenging the declaration of William Ruto as a president-elect. The coalition or anyone else has up until 2 p.m. today to do so, setting up the stage for an epic legal battle at the Apex Court. The highest court will then have 14 days to hear and determine the case with at least two possible outcomes. One, declare the election null and void and order a runoff, or uphold the election, paving way for the swearing-in of the president-elect. So which way will it go and what is at stake? Well, we'll be finding out that much more as we dissect those issues much deeper with my panelists this morning. I will be introducing them in just a short moment. But first, one issue, and this is a story that we probably missed yesterday. Now, as was the case in 2017, the credibility of this year's presidential election will once again be decided by the Supreme Court as the Azimio La Umoja team puts together documents and evidence to convince the judges that the Electoral Commission was involved in a series of fraudulent acts well calculated to deny Odinga a win. The Azimio legal team is seeking a Supreme Court declaration that William Ruto was not validly declared the president-elect and will be asking the court to overturn the election in Odinga's favor. NTV's Brian Obuya now takes us inside Odinga's case against the IEBC, Wafula Chebukati and William Ruto.
A Lone Ranger, Wafula Chebukati, on Monday the 15th of August walked to the dais at the Bomas of Kenya to declare the winner of the August 9th election.
In accordance with the law, the Constitution and the law, I, Wafula Chebukati, Chairperson of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, hereby declares that Ruto William Samoei
It was his second attempt to announce the outcome of the presidential election after he had earlier been wrapped up by unhappy members at the venue. Chebukati was the only member of the Electoral Commission who came out for the announcement. Four other commissioners were holding a parallel news conference at the Serena Hotel where they contested the outcome of the presidential vote, claiming opacity in the process and calling Chebukati a dictator.
We therefore decline to take ownership of the said results because the aggregation resulted in a total exceeding the percentage of 100, which cast doubt on the accuracy of the source of the figures tallied, and when we demanded that we verify our record, the chairman declined.
The statement by the four was the clearest indication that the Azimio La Umoja coalition party was not going to agree with the outcome. In 2 days' time, Odinga and his troops pronounced themselves on Chebukati's announcement, calling it a travesty and a circumvention of the will of the people. Odinga left the door open for a court challenge.
What we saw yesterday was a travesty and a blatant disregard of the Constitution and the laws of Kenya by Mr. Chebukati and a minority of IEBC commissioners.
Now the Azimio La Umoja One Kenya coalition hopes to persuade the Apex Court to overturn President-elect William Ruto's win in their candidate's favor. They will be seeking to cast doubts on the final tally, the verification and results declaration, and lift the lid on the inconsistencies in the IEBC figures. The fallout within the commission will provide much-needed firepower. Odinga has cited the split in the Chebukati-led IEBC among the grounds to dispute the outcome of the presidential vote.
Sisi hatutaki kuona fujo au vurugu katika taifa letu. Nataka kuona amani ikidumu katika taifa letu. Ndio sababu tumeamua kutumia sheria na kuenda kwenye mbele mahakama kuu ili tupeleke ushahidi ambayo tuko nazo na kuonyesha kwamba ilikuwa ni mzaha, haikuwa ni uchaguzi. Tunataka kufanya hii kutetea demokrasia ya taifa letu ambayo watu wengi walipigania, wengine walikufa wakipigania demokrasia katika taifa letu. Tunafikiri ni jukumu letu sisi ambao tumebaki nyuma kuhakikisha kwamba hii hatua ambayo imefanyika hapa isiturudishe sisi nyuma kule tulikotoka.
Apart from protests on the opaqueness of the vote tallying and verification process as amplified by IEBC Vice Chair Juliana Cherera and Commissioners Francis Wanderi, Irene Masit and Justus Nyang'aya, the Odinga-led brigade is building a case to show the apex court inconsistencies in the figures. The battle to challenge the figures is being fought on two fronts. One is the question about the actual voter turnout and reported higher presidential tallies for Mr. Ruto in certain Kenya Kwanza strongholds compared to votes garnered by candidates in other elective seats, with a special focus on Mount Kenya region.
But this is an issue that we will take it all the way. You have seen that every person in this country is struggling to add up the numbers that were given by IEBC. It is an embarrassment that IEBC can leave all of us with mathematics to do. Everybody is coming up with his own formula because they lacked clarity. And the requirement of our constitution is that our elections must be conducted in the simplest manner possible, the manner that is easily understood, and the manner that allows us to continue having known who is our leader. The fact that IEBC has thrown us into a quagmire is already an indication that something went wrong, and we hope that the courts will address this issue properly. We need them to ensure that we carry on. In any case, we expect that when the courts cause off this thing or cause some people to order, because that is what we expect as Azimio, those who may be seen like they are celebrating will also have the decorum. They will be able to raise to the occasion to ensure that the country remains as peaceful as it is today. If the outcome from the Supreme Court is contrary to what those in Uda are celebrating, can they maintain calm, just like those of us in Azimio have maintained calm? I have every reason to believe that this will be overturned by the Supreme Court.
Azimio campaign spokesperson Professor Makao Mutua, in his Twitter account, for instance, had questioned how 300,000 people in a county would vote for a governor, while only 200,000 voted for a president. The contention, in another attempt to discredit the IEBC's figures on voter turnout, lies in IEBC's contradictions. The poll agency's chair, Wafula Chebukati, had initially reported a figure of 65.4% as the voter turnout, which would translate to 14,466,779 votes against a register of 22,120,458. But Chebukati's final tally had 14,213,137 total valid votes and 113,614 rejected ballots, which totals to 14,326,751 votes, leaving a difference of 140,028 votes. Raila Odinga, who has assembled a formidable team of lawyers, hopes to convince the Supreme Court that 140,028 votes was significant enough to deny the country an outright winner. Odinga's campaign also contends that there are about 1 million votes that are unaccounted for. The Cherera team had also further questioned the number of votes and subsequent percentages announced by the Commission's chairman in favor of each presidential candidate, calling it a mathematical absurdity that defies logic. Based on the televised fallout in the Commission, the question of the process from voting, counting, tallying, relaying and transmitting election results is the major contention in the anticipated legal proceedings. In the 2017 election nullification judgment, the Supreme Court held that election is not confined to the number of votes cast in favor of each candidate and the declaration of results, but also the electoral process and the integrity of the same. Odinga's agents claim that the IEBC systems had been hacked and results doctored, the allegation leading the Azimio Party's chief agent to grab a microphone at the National Tallying Center, declaring it an active crime scene.
The reason that I said Bomas of Kenya was a crime scene is because as Kenyans were busy waiting for the outcome of this election, the members of this commission, we believe led by Wafula Chebukati himself, were busy tampering and tinkering and manipulating.
The battery of advocates will also be tabling a damning audit report by KPMG that warned of rogue IEBC officials who had unfettered access to the systems and manipulated the voter register and transferred polling stations without any oversight. In July, Chebukati announced that the commission had suspended and reported to the DPP 3 of its employees who it says they were involved in the irregular transfer of voters. But Odinga's team will be telling the Koome bench that no remedial action was taken to stop the illegal manipulation, leaving open a window that was used to suppress the Azimio presidential candidates' votes. The commission is also on the spot over the failure to publicly announce presidential election results in Form 34B from all the 291 constituency tallying centers before the final declaration. Prior to declaring the final results, Chebukati, who is the returning officer for the presidential election, had declared the results of 263 constituencies out of the 291. Results from 28 of the constituencies were not publicly announced. About the voters' register, the strategy is to lay doubt on the credibility of the role of voters based on the KPMG audit. The extensive report exposed major security loopholes, revealing that there were 14 mysterious returning officers who had been running the IEBC integrated data management system. The KPMG report unearthed weak password systems and login details of ghost electoral officials, pointing to the possibility of hackers accessing the database and proceeding to deny voters their right to cast their ballots by either deleting their details from the roll or transferring them away from their preferred polling stations. The report further showed the existence of 10 users named Embakasi South clerks. There were 4 additional but unauthorized IT users. Azimio intends to argue that there were 11 active generic accounts on the automated biometric system application and another 2 users with the same login identification. When the supreme battle begins, it will be a tense 14 days for both Ruto and Odinga. Brian Obuya, NTV.
Well, an epic battle indeed, and we'll be looking into the dailies just to get a sense and idea of how the Supreme Court battle will look like and who are involved, and specifically how the battery of lawyers are aligned to those different teams. Just allow me to introduce my panelists this morning to take us through the dailies as well. Dismas Mokua, political risk analyst. A very good morning, Dismas. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
And Dr. Duncan Ojwang, human rights advocate, also the Dean, African Nazarene University School of Law. Karibu sana, Dr. Ojwang.
Asante. Good
Indeed, indeed. I think we'll begin with the Daily Nation. And there you have it. So that's just inside the pages. So that's what we have on the very front page of the Daily Nation. It's in their hands now. The big legal face-off. All eyes now shift to the theatre of the Supreme Court today as Raila Odinga files his petition against William Ruto, whom he accuses of usurping the will of the majority by stealing this month's election. Both camps have assembled heavy-hitting legal teams to defend their cases, but after all the drama and courtroom spectacle of the coming days, it will all boil down to Chief Justice Martha Koome and her team of 6 judges. There you have it. There's Chief Justice Martha Koome. On the side, you have Philomena Mwilu, Isaac Lenaola, Mohamed Ibrahim, Smokin Wanjala, William Ouko, and Njoki Ndungu. These are the men and women who's now the ball is now in their court when it comes to this election. Just let's see what's the story about. So on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation, we'll be getting to that. Let me get that. All right, so top legal minds to face off in the poll petition. And of course, all eyes will be from today in the next 14 days on the 7 judges of the Supreme Court. We've had them. And we'll be getting to Raila Odinga's team and who they are, and also, you know, the other team. And just looking ahead, these are the main faces we'll perhaps be seeing. On Raila Odinga's team, you have James Orengo, Philip Murgor, you have Feroz Norji, remember he was very instrumental in the 2017 petition. Fred Ngatia, you have Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi on William Ruto's side, as well as Githu Muigai, who will be representing the IEBC, and Kamau Karori. Well, gentlemen, there you have it. I mean, it's not our first dance at the Supreme Court. We've seen this before 2 times. This is the 3rd time. Dismas, what do we expect at the Supreme Court?
Well, you know, the Kenyans, and especially the ones who are very interested in politics and legal issues, are keenly waiting to socialize or interact with the Azimio la Umoja presidential petition. So right now it would be very early in the day to comment on the case they want to place before the Supreme Court,
right? Because
we haven't seen the content. But from a layman's perspective, they must demonstrate beyond any reasonable doubts that these elections was not anchored in transparency. But from what we saw from the Bomas of Kenya, the tallying, the Form 34As, because now everybody in Kenya knows that presidential polls are held at the polling stations.
Right.
And what is communicated at the polling station is final. Even Mr. Chebukati has no capacity to alter anything. So they must demonstrate that the forms as signed off at the polling station and the ones which have been uploaded, that are inconsistencies. I think that will be the key thing. But again, from reports that they want to have a conversation around the voters register. But really, I think we need to be slightly patient,
right,
so that we can understand the content. You realize yesterday, Kalonzo Musyoka was saying that, in fact, a general election has not taken place in Kenya,
right, because
not all electoral areas are voted. So we may require to be a bit patient to find out exactly the grounds.
All right. And even as you say that, just getting this particular tweet, I'd not seen it, so it was posted about 8 hours ago by Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi, lawyer, senior counsel, saying, I want, but I cannot act for President-elect Ruto in the Supreme Court. I am conflicted. In 2017, I acted for outgoing President Uhuru against Honorable Raila. Now that Uhuru's is talking about, you know, Raila Odinga is challenging Ruto's victory, obviously Uhuru will object and raise clients. And of course, he's speaking on a number of personal reasons why he says he will not be part of the lawyers representing President-elect William Ruto. Dr. Ojwang, what are your expectations on this case?
My expectation, one, is to ask Kenyans to lower their expectations, generally.
Right.
Just lower your expectation. Number two, as Mukua aptly said, you know, it's like inviting us to the kitchen, telling us, test the salt, test the powder, test the sugar, test the flour. Is this going to be a good cake? You know, lick the oil, warm your hands by the fire. All we are talking about right now is the ingredients, right? They have not been put together.
Right.
It is only when you have now put those ingredients together where you can ask me, is this a good cake?
Right.
But
we cannot at this point say.
Right, but if you
because
invite,
then they all have
right,
until 2 p.m. We haven't seen a petition yet up until now.
Yet. So yeah, so if you invite me to the kitchen and give me the different ingredient to test, and then you ask me, what do you think of this cake?
Right.
It will be hard to justify.
Right.
Just from licking the flour and the sugar and all that. But be as it may, so my question has been, where is the smoking gun?
Right.
Are there more that probably we don't know? As a tactics, you might not bring everything up front. But again, we ask ourselves, what else could it be? I think that the biggest lie we do is to lie to ourselves and to our supporters. And that's why I started by requesting that Kenyans just lower your if it happens, fine. If it doesn't happen, let it not catch you off guard.
Like I said, it's not the first time we're there.
Yeah, and the reason being that the threshold is 50 and above. That you must show that this election was conducted in a way violating the law and factually failed more than 50% of the election. Can you look, and the standard is a reasonable, not unreasonable. So can a reasonable person look at this election that we have just finished and say more than 50% of this election is nothing but a sham? So it's not just about picking something or finding something imperfect here. It is about meeting your burden of production and persuasion, which is above 50%. Then, of course, we saw what 2017 was. Remember, this time there is no cry of open the server. This time, the Form 34A are all there physically. Last time they were not. This time, before the declaration of the results, all the forms had been verified. Displaying them or announcing them is simply ceremonial, it's not a requirement. The declaration of results, the law talk of declaration of results, that is not even it is the form that the arrow signs with the results. So there is a lot that have improved from 2017, including, remember, the KIMS kit worked almost 99% this time. Unlike last time, including the double transmission, the digital, and then the manual physical form. So I don't know where we could shake things and find this magic, but be as it may, you are inviting us to the kitchen to test the different ingredients.
Let me just buttress the point is made, and he's spoken about managing expectations.
Right.
Or expectations management. That is something that all Kenyans must do. And we have said times above number that all Kenyans, and indeed the entire world, should have been prepared for two outcomes. That you can have a Raila Odinga presidency, or you can have a William Ruto presidency.
Right.
So that if a William Ruto has been declared as the president-elect, that must not give you a running stomach. You shouldn't start sweating and wondering where is your future going to be. And also the same thing for Raila Odinga. Because a number of people, and Professor knows a number of them, from the time William Ruto was declared president-elect, they've been on alcoholic beverages since then, trying to manage the expectations. But they must be told that when a leader has been elected by the popular will of the people, you must not suffer as a result. Just realign your priorities and you will be able to swim for the next 10 years. Unfortunately, the situation obtaining in Kenya, the majority of people have invested a lot of emotions in the political process, a lot of financial resources in the political process, so that when their candidate of choice is not declared president-elect, they start running all over town, as if the world is coming to an end, and then they start clutching on straws. Because, for instance, when you talk about the Form 34As, that's where the presidential elections are held. Any presidential candidate going to this election was alive to that fact. That is number one. Then these are the same images. They took images at the polling stations and sent them to the portal. The agents from Mosocho, from Mandera, went to the tallying station and verified that these are the forms, these are our signatures. No fraud has been introduced in the process. Now, you must be ready to accept the will of Mora. If Mora is so determined that the next president for the next 5 years is going to be Mr. William Ruto, you must not have a running timing. If the Supreme Court says that if they do an audit of the process and they make a determination which is otherwise, also William Ruto supporters must not have a running stomach. So we must accept that we are in a democracy and the will of Mora must prevail. And additionally, the international observers and diplomats, ambassadors and high commissioners, very strange that they were working in shifts at Bomas of Kenya. It's as if they were on a full-time assignment that they ensured that a group is represented. We've had conversations with a number of them and have in fact said that even the West, including America, found this transparency something which is amazing, something that they may want to learn from Kenya. So the way professors indicated that it may be too early to find out how the cake is going to be made.
Right.
But you know, if you're making a cake and you bring ile unga ya kupika ugali, then we can start smelling a rush that this is not going to be a nice cake, it's actually going to be ugali. So from the issues raised so far, one struggles to see the merits, but again, one hopes that they're playing a certain card, that whatever they're telling us, like for instance, when Dr. Kalonzo Musyoka says that in fact there was no general election. Now, if that is the pillar of the argument, then one can start wondering whether or not they're serious. But I'm really hoping that they have a very serious case, because at the end of the day, Mura's will must be reflected.
You know, interestingly enough, the Azimio team seems to be holding their cards very close to their chest to this point, but they have appeared quite confident that whatever evidence they've gathered, garnered and put together will be quite massive when it comes to this petition in court. So that will be interesting to see. We're going to come back and discuss this issue a little bit more and of course in depth. Just moving on, confident, like I said, leaders insist victory was stolen. Are quite sure Ruto's win will be reversed. Raila is brimming with confidence as he prepares to file his petition against the declaration of Dr. Ruto as the winner of the election. Well, Odinga, his running mate Martha Karua and Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka yesterday remained bullish, asserting that the quest at the Apex Court would show the world how their victory was stolen. He was speaking, of course, during a Sunday service at the Jesus Teaching Ministry in Donholm in Nairobi, saying, and I quote, "We will pursue them, we will conquer them, and we will bring the victory home." Kenyans spoke, and of course they believe that the Supreme Court will overturn the election of 2022. Now, we'll treat Uhuru with respect, Deputy President William Ruto says. An olive branch, Gachagua, says they are ready to work with everyone, including those who opposed them in the polls. The DP thanked voters in Mount Kenya region for overwhelmingly voting him in the just concluded general election. The president-elect and his deputy, Rigathi Gachagua, assuring President Uhuru Kenyatta of a peaceful retirement as he thanked voters in Mount Kenya for their support in the August 9th polls. They were speaking at that Thanksgiving service organized by Githunguri MP-elect Gathoni Wamuchomba in Kiambu County. Dr. Ojwang, I mean, how significant is this, this remark saying, we are going to treat Uhuru with respect? President-elect Ruto says.
Yeah, no, of course, magnanimity. Yes.
Yes.
Is the new word in town after you have won. The priority changes. You must govern. You must act, talk as a president, elect, of course. And of course, remember, this is not different because throughout they kept telling the president, don't be nervous, do not panic. Things will not be so bad for you. And those are important because sometimes you negotiate between justice and peace. And sometimes, even in countries that have gone through conflict, in order to even allow worst case scenario, even for peaceful transition, you give amnesty. And therefore, I think it is appropriate, it is reassuring, and of course, it's in condition that I should not dig the hole deeper. Just stop by where you are, take this olive branch, and we move on. Indeed, the honor of Kenyans are the morale that he always talks about. If you had any doubt after this election, be reassured that the honors of Kenya are not the people we grew up citing the loyalty pledge about.
Right.
They're not the people we grew up waiting by the roadside to cheer as they pass in big convoy. We are the sovereign.
Yes, this.
His point. Actually, Kenya has got a legislative framework on how retired presidents are supposed to be treated. So when retired President Moi left office, President Kibaki treated him in that manner, and also President Kenyatta treated President Kibaki in that manner. So there's actually a best practice established. There is a president established, and when a president leaves office, he must be treated with the utmost respect. He must be accorded all the benefits, because if you do the converse, you'll be setting a bad precedent, and you can actually set up yourself for failure. And you know, it's only in Kenya where we have retired presidents because of our very, very strong democracy. So there is this valid expectation that President Kenyatta, at his tender age, is going to be accorded the highest level of respect. And if there are international opportunities, maybe at the UN level, at the Africa Union level, President-elect Ruto, or if it's going to be Raila Odinga, they must not hesitate in recommending that President Kenyatta takes those roles. In fact, President Kenyatta excelled in the international arena than he did locally in Kenya. So I think the world awaits him with plenty of opportunity. So the person who will be eventually take over at State House must treat him in that manner.
All right. But this must, I mean, just looking at the numbers in terms of how they voted, that specific block, Mount Kenya, I'm going to get into the numbers in just a moment. Do you think it was, you know, strategic to have the president-elect, you know, in his first Thanksgiving, you know, sort of event, going to Kiambu County to say, thank you for voting me in, or it was just by chance? When you're looking at these counties, about nearly 3 million votes came from like Kipia, Tharaka Nithi, Muranga, Kiambu, Nyeri, Kirinyaga, Nyandarua, Embu, Meru, and Nakuru collectively. Raila Odinga, on the other hand, managed to get 247,709 votes in Mount Kenya, which partly explains, you know, it was quite a close contest considering, you know, Raila Odinga performed quite poorly in the region in the past elections.
Well, you know, if you look at President-elect's path to victory, first of all, he ensured that he has consolidated Mount Kenya, then he has consolidated Rift Valley, and then he has converted the rest of Kenya into battlegrounds. So I think for me, it was prudent for President-elect Ruto to go to Kiambu. But again, you know, this is something which had been put together. The event was put together by an MP-elect. So, but again, you can't ignore the role of Mount Kenya, because in the absence of Mount Kenya, probability of discussing President-elect Ruto today would be zero. Right. So he needed to go back and tell them, thanks for giving me your support. And that is President Kenyatta's home ground. That is his county. To also reassure the people that your son is not going to be victimized. Your son is going to be treated like royalty. Because, I mean, give him credit. President Kenyatta has done very well for Kenya. In as much as he took a decision not to support his deputy and support Mr. Raila Odinga, nobody should punish him for those choices. He should be given a red carpet as he goes into, as he slides into retirement.
All right. I know you can't hear me, but
You know, Mount Kenya has been this meandering river that have been, so to speak, been taught can never vote anybody out of the community. And even then, there was a lot of apprehension that will they, for the first time, defy, you know, there has been, oh yeah, there is people who speak for that mountain. And those are the people who matter. So to some extent, it was a political experiment, according to me,
right,
of saying, I'm not going through the kingpins, I'm going through the people, and let me see. And it worked. And why not? Think about it.
Right.
The people who queued with Martha Karua in her own polling station, about 900 voted for Ruto, while 34 voted for her. The people who queued with the president in her own polling station, down to the village, super majority voted for Ruto, and very few found themselves voting for Raila.
Right.
Surely that is an endorsement, and therefore not just the victory, but even the moral victory.
Okay.
The possibility of what do I say, how do I hide, do I have face saving?
Okay.
I think he has given it to them.
All right. And allow me to just introduce Ojwang Osogo, elections and governance analyst, as well as Ishmael Nyaribo, lawyer and political analyst as well. We'll be getting to hear from Ishmael in just a moment as we fix that mic. But Ojwang, good morning. Karibu sana. It was quite a week, but here we are. Indeed. And we are certainly facing, you know, an epic battle at the Supreme Court, perhaps, if a petition will be filed. We'll be getting into that conversation in a moment. I don't know if you'd like to chime into this conversation. We're just still looking at the dailies. We'll treat Uhuru with respect, the Deputy President, who is now President-elect, William Ruto says.
I saw that and I was just thinking, you know, Ruto is just the guy, because he is already planning for, in case there's a rerun, if not, at least he still retains his base in Mount Kenya for 2027. Ruto is not somebody who will wait to start planning for 2027 next year. He already has this, so he will already begin to look at how do I get re-elected in 2027. And we now know where the numbers are, and Mount Kenya it is, you know. So remember, Raila made a bit of gains in Mount Kenya, and that is bad for Ruto. So he has to make sure he consolidates everything, you know. We do not know who will emerge in 2027. Just in case it is somebody from Mount Kenya, he will already have Mount Kenya in his bag, okay? Because they might give a presidential candidate. So he must make sure the deal is so good for them that they do not consider any other alternative. But before 2027, there might just be a rerun. So how does he go into the rerun? So for me, he's just trying to make sure nobody else can get a pinch of Mount Kenya. He goes into the rerun, he has his backyard 100%, and he has Mount Kenya 100%. I think for me that is what this is all about, because by then Uhuru will totally be out of the picture. So he wants to show them, you will not be exposed, I will take care of your own. As you can already see, your own whom you gave me to work with, things are looking good. So I think he's just trying to make sure that all those who did not come out to vote in Mount Kenya are confident in him and actually come and vote for him should we go for a rerun. And if not, they will be confident that he is the man to vote for.
Right.
And have their interest at heart.
All right, Ojwang. We'll come back to Wakili Ishmael, but at this point, let's just take a quick break. Then we'll be back and continue with the dailies and, of course, just get much deeper into dissecting what perhaps will be quite an epic battle at the Supreme Court. Stay with us.
They say that the aim of a constitutional democracy is to safeguard the rights of the minority while avoiding the tyranny of the majority. And that in politics, nothing happens by accident. Opinion is the medium between knowledge and ignorance. That's where we as a fourth estate come in to separate the wheat from the chaff, fact from fiction. Dissecting for you the biggest political and governance issues in the Republic in the way only we can. Keeping tabs on the pulse of the nation.
Front and Center, Thursday nights on NTV.
Labor markets, economies, enterprises, supply chains, governments, workers, employers. We go deeper and beyond. Business Daily. Available off and online.
Welcome to the NBA Finals. Now this is a celebration.
The Finals. When 60-foot prayer can get answered at the buzzer.
It's more like 61 feet.
You gotta be great from game 1 and game 7.
Because when the champagne stops popping, does anybody know what's left?
Legendary status, my man.
Yes, Dirk.
Exactly. Oh my greatness.
Dave, this line is not going down and you're burning up. But I'll sort you out, my friend. See that barrier? Go for it.
Bing bang bing. If you don't come home with me right now, then I am going to file a case against you for abandonment.
Mrs. Marissa, the garage just called to tell you that your car is already fixed and you can go and pick it up today.
And how could you think of just leaving after the bomb you dropped on me? You are not leaving until this has been cleared up.
Mom!
Well, if I sleep over at your house during the weekend, what do you think of that?
It had to be you.
The Nairobi Hospital Accident and Emergency Center is manned by well-trained doctors and emergency nurses who are focused at saving lives. With a network of labs, you're guaranteed of accurate medical test results. The Nairobi Hospital is a center of renal excellence, providing cutting-edge technology with over 10 dialysis machines.
All right, welcome back to AM Live as we continue to look at the week that has been, and indeed a week it was. Still looking at the dailies and still on the Daily Nation, inside the Daily Nation. On page 10, performance. Some of the politicians failed to deliver even the votes from their home counties. But Kalonzo proves his value as other party leaders fumble. Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka, passed over in the race for Raila Odinga's running mate, has reinvented himself, increasing the number of elected leaders under his belt and cementing his place as the Ukambani political supremo. Well, the election results show the former vice president has stamped his authority in the politics of Ukambani after bagging the governor's seat in the region, that is Machakos, Kitui and Makueni counties. Also, Wiper has 3 senator seats, that is in Machakos, Makueni and Kitui as well. And further, the party has 20 MPs, the third highest in the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition, after ODM's 76 and Jubilee's 24. Ishmael, Bwana Kalonzo Musyoka appears to be the man whose loyalty has come out for value for Raila Odinga. Do you agree?
Yeah, thank you. You see, we actually said this before during the boardroom wars between the Raila and Kalonzo, even before Akina Mudavadi moved on. We said that first and foremost, that is a person to watch. We did say this. And then when he went back for some time, those of us who are advising that Azimio should up their game and do their homework, we were insisting that you must get Kalonzo Musyoka of all the people. And we were also telling Kalonzo Musyoka it is a big letdown if you start going to your village to look after your cows. That time he showcased a huge number of cattle. So, and you can see he came back to the Azimio fold and he has delivered. Whether Martha Karua delivered, if you contrast and compare the two, Kalonzo is actually way beyond. And this leads us to say that you should look at the culture and the ways and values of the people. The Kamba people decided to rally behind Kalonzo Musyoka to the man. Of course, the Kikuyu did not rally behind their man, stroke woman. They did not, in terms of supporting, right, the Azimio bandwagon. So I think Kalonzo has done his homework, and the feeling in Azimio cycles was that they would take the government so that they groom him, into the presidency stature, and then come 2027 and later in the day, he becomes president of the Republic of Kenya. He is a man to count on, definitely.
Mm-hmm. All right. Dismas.
Well, Kalonzo and his team had indicated that no Kalonzo, no Raila. And I think his words have come to pass. Mm-hmm. Because from these wins, he has demonstrated that he's got capacity to have his base dancing to his drum beats. So when he tells them jump, they don't ask why, they just ask how high. So he's been able to deliver the entire region into Wiper. So when I think when Azimio were doing their sensitivity analysis and scenario analysis, they should have put together a graph to establish what would happen if Kalonzo has got, say, 90% turnout of his base. Right. How would it affect the figures? Now, with the benefit of hindsight, which is the 2020, had Kalonzo been taken as the running mate, there's a very high chance that the president-elect would be Raila Odinga. But still talking about his base, it's very curious that in Makueni County, 75% of the KIMS kits that are failed in Kenya, all of them were in one county. I don't know what that has got to do with this win, but I found it very curious that 75% of the KIMS kits that are failed in Kenya, all of them in one county in Makueni. But that one may not be a big point. But the thing is that Kalonzo is a very strategic player. And as we have this conversation, he's been slotted as a possible Azimio candidate for the position of National Assembly Speaker. So one begins to wonder, if you are sure of an Azimio victory, why would you want to be the Speaker of the National Assembly? Because if he takes that position as the Speaker of the National Assembly, and Mr. Odinga's venture to the Supreme Court are not a success, then Kalonzo will become the most powerful politician within Azimio, and that may be good ground for 2027. But the question, or the elephant in the room, is you are supposed to be the Chief Cabinet Secretary in a Raila presidency, and Raila has said that he's got a very strong case, it's going to the Supreme Court. Why are you taking a corner, why are you taking a dive to go to the National Assembly as a possible speaker? Could it be that because he's a very clever man, I think he's a giraffe, he has seen over the horizons and he sees probability of success is probably zero. So he wants to go and take this position of speaker where he can easily secure
Wouldn't you just say that it is perhaps a matter of strategy, saying, you know what, if this doesn't work out, well, there is always, I mean,
that is very good strategy.
Right.
Yeah, that's the point I'm trying to be able to say. That's a very good strategy. I'll not be surprised if he places a call to President-elect Ruto and he says, I want to join you with my 20 members of the National Assembly. Yeah, because, you know, politicians, as Professor Ojwang here knows, there are people whose selfish interest always run supreme. It's not about Umara most of the time.
All right, Dr. Ojwang.
Yeah, no, Kalonzo, he lost a few, but imagine he was able to garner this without being the running mate. And that just speaks, honestly, to his resilience. He is the king of the region. And
so he's asserted himself, even if there was some, talk of him being, a little bit waning in terms of his influence in that region. Sort of
but those were Azimio narratives when they were not sure they will have him, because everybody was drooling to have Kalonzo. But at some point they tried to cut his leg so that he cannot run so far. But everybody knew, even when they were saying Uhuru was guaranteed this, so Kalonzo, even if you walk away, but they worked so hard, including sessions that he had with the bishops, remember, in his admission, including the Dubai visits, coincidentally with the other Azimio leaders, the bonding trips. It has been, they knew and nobody underrated him, and indeed he delivered for Azimio.
Right.
Of course, we know that in Kitui, interestingly, Ruto got a little more vote than the rest of Ukambani because of work and all those efforts. But yes, he did very well.
Okay, Achieng, I don't know if you have something to add on this.
Yeah, I think for Kalonzo, you see, this was supposed to be a Mandela moment for Baba. He was supposed to do one term, and so it was a stage to market himself, to prove that once Baba exits, then I am it. And so he had to go out of his way to prove this and just consolidate his base so that as he comes, he already has his backyard with him. He's negotiating to get whoever else he might bring on board. So for him, other than just getting Raila into government, he had something more pushing him. And I think he did very well. I liked that he negotiated, boardroom discussions and managed to convince Ngilu to step down in favor of his candidate, again towards just showing that this is my turf. I am the one in charge here.
Right.
So in 2027, when you're looking at who controls what, I am controlling this. And in as much as there were some lame statements at some point that is Okura Nengapi, now we know you know. So he wanted to just make sure he had his block for 2027 event for him. I don't think he was doing it for now. I think he was just setting the stage for the next election.
Okay, all right. Let's just moving on from there. Also very quickly, Uhuru to call the 13th Parliament's first sitting, and the first business will be swearing in of members who will then elect the Speaker. So Parliament is expected to be recalled any time now following the conclusion of the election. It's not, however, clear whether it shall wait for the by-elections in Pokot South. We had Kacheliba, Rongai and Kuresoi South constituencies. The IBC suspended voting in those areas due to a mix-up of ballot papers, but Article 126(2) of the Constitution provides that whenever a new house is elected, the President, through a Gazette notice, shall appoint the place and date for the first sitting, which shall be not more than 30 days after the election. This provision is anchored on the fact that a sitting of either house may be held at any place within the Republic and may commence at any time. The first business, of course, will be swearing in of the members who will then elect a speaker. The clerks shall preside over the events. And I think I saw a very interesting statement here. It was a quote from an analyst, I believe, who says, until a new president is sworn in, the outgoing president shall continue to discharge the duties of the head of state. The president-elect to this point has no powers. Ishmael, is that the correct assertion?
Of course, it's correct. It's the law. The president-elect has no powers yet to do anything.
Right.
He's not been sworn in. And there cannot be two presidents. There is one who is already sworn in. Just like, it has been in the past. I think calling Parliament just to swear in the parliamentarians, that is more or less, a procedural duty.
Right.
Because the other, members of Parliament, except where somebody is disputing, and even if you dispute, as long as you have been elected a member of Parliament, you will have to be sworn in and then start discharging the business of the House.
Right.
And in terms of who has powers to do that, I don't think there should be any confusion. Just like we say, it is the IBC chairman who announces results of the presidential winner. It is the same. The sitting president is still the president until the president-elect has been sworn in. And I think as it looks like we may have to wait a little bit longer for the Supreme Court to go through the exercise of, hearing petitions. Yes.
All right. I think there isn't much on that, but all right. So my screen there is moving too fast. Just very quickly on the front pages of the Business Daily, Techie wins 1.6 billion against state in cancelled IT tender. Treasury struggles as fuel subsidy hits 71 billion in 6 months. That's quite huge. On Taifa Leo, Ngoma yaanza, we see the names there. Mrengo wa Azimio ukiongozwa na Raila Odinga leo utafika mahakama ya juu kuwasilisha rasmi pingamizi zao dhidi ya ushindi wa William Ruto katika kinyang'anyiro cha urais wa Agosti 9. Mawakili wenye tajriba wanatarajiwa kuongoza kabiliano hiyo ya kisheria. And I think that has been quite, the prominent headline here. Still on the Standard, Raila versus Chebukati petition. Azimio team believes it has a watertight case to prove election was not free and fair and that the Supreme Court judges should overturn Chebukati's declaration. Meanwhile, Kenya Kwanza has instructed its lawyers to defend their win vehemently. Both sides will spend hundreds of millions to prove their point in the next 2 weeks. We'll be getting that to page 4, 5, 6, and 7. I'll begin with you, Achieng. I mean, you didn't have an opportunity to respond and give your remarks on this issue as well. So looking at where we are, I mean, and I was telling Dismas and Dr. Ojwang, it is not our first dance. We've been here before. 2013, 2017, we find ourselves back at the Supreme Court. We saw the two different outcomes that came from that petition in 2013. That election was upheld by the Supreme Court in 2017. It was nullified, and there was a runoff or a rerun. But you know what happened after that. But here we are. What do you, from where you sit, and I know we don't have the details of what the case is all about, but from where you sit, what do you expect to see?
For me, I don't think it is about a nullification, or for me it's not about the end. how it will all go. For me, it is about, I don't know if there's something called case law.
Yes.
Yes, to improve building institutions. And I like how the 2017, both 2013 and 2017 went, because they helped us enhance how IEBC performed in this particular election. So for me, this is about identifying the gaps. Again, going back to what the 4 commissioners described as opaque. So we have got so many things right up to a particular point where we now define as opaque. So for me, the Supreme Court is going to help us unpack what opaque is. It's going to help us make IEBC better, because everybody will come and there will be accusations and counter accusations, what you observed, what you did not observe. And the gaps will come out and we will think together. I think the courts in their wisdom will make recommendations which will help us better 2027. So it is not about whether the elections will be nullified or not. It is about a better election in 2027. For me, that is the focus, because unfortunately, whichever way it goes, we will still only have one winner. And the side that we lose will still feel very, unhappy about it, or in such a tight contest. So, and everyone, of course, is hoping there will be a nullification. The side for Azimio are hoping there will be a nullification. The side for Kenya Kwanza are hoping it will be upheld. That for me is neither here nor there. For me, it is just what the arguments that will come out, what IEBC will say about the accusations that Azimio will make, what Kenya Kwanza will say about the accusations that Kenya Kwanza will make, what the Mwaure and Wajakoya, if they will join in, will say, what the observers will say. All the issues, the only unfortunate thing is that a lot of it, like before, still revolves around trust. So perhaps we will find a few ideas on how to deal with some of our trust issues, towards this opaqueness. And I'm looking forward to clarity on this issue of a vote by the Commission on our vote, and just a way forward, and how then the nation should address itself going forward. So in 2027, we do not then have all commissioners agreeing unanimously, but agreeing against us, and then somebody else goes to court that this time they were unanimous, but, So for me, I'm just looking for direction, just clarity on how IEBC operates.
Dismas, looking back at the 2017 election petition, do you think that we were able, or IEBC was able, to cure some of those issues that the court pointed out that perhaps would have set the stage for yet another petition within which we're in right now?
That's a presidential petition had 2 pillars. Number one, the Supreme Court told IEBC that everything they do must be anchored in the Constitution, the relevant acts of Parliament. Then number 2, they said that the election was marred by irregularities and illegalities, essentially telling the Commission that they were incompetent in the delivery of their mandates. And one sees most of the recommendations from that petition have been executed in this poll. Because one of the big things was that, can you open this server? Then we were treated to a lot of drama. That we can't open the server is in France, those people are still asleep, we need to wake them up. But this time round, the server was in the open space, and everybody had the presidential results, but nobody knew the winner till Chebukati made the declaration. So there was a lot of transparency. And as a question we must start asking ourselves, we have these 4 commissioners who are being described as dissenting commissioners or rebel commissioners, describing the entire system as opaque. One hopes that there will be affidavits sworn by these 4 commissioners presented to the Supreme Court, so that we begin to appreciate the definition of opaque from the understanding. And if we reverse the coin and ask ourselves, had Mr. Raila Odinga been declared president-elect, those commissioners, would they be treated as valiants, or they would be treated as heroes? And also the Supreme Court now would be able to pronounce itself to understand when the Constitution says that the person who carries the responsibility, who declares the election, is a chairman of IEBC, who is also the returning officer, what is the role of these other commissioners? I suspect most of the commissions in Kenya would be very interested to find out how they're supposed to relate with the chairman. Because if there is no clarity, then other chairmen of other commissioners can easily bulldoze their colleagues in those commissions. So I think this will be a very good setting for us to get clarity that when the Constitution says that the returning officer is the chair, then what is the responsibility? And then also, those are 4 dissenting or rebel commissioners, as they've been described. We need to understand their role right from the word go. Because there is a lot of curiosity that how come it's these 4 commissioners who joined the other 3 who had dissenting positions and who facilitated their movements. Because you remember a declaration was supposed to be made around 3 o'clock. A few short hours later, they show up at a venue and they appear to be in a hurry, they appear to be sweating, they're reading a statement which appears to be incoherent. The basics of mathematics, mathematics becomes a challenge. You remember the decimal point, something you may have learned when you're in class 3. And then you begin to wonder now these commissioners who do not understand even percentages. How did they make their way to that commission? Yeah. No. I mean, IBC is all about numbers. But if you can't, I mean, are you suggesting that they had a very strong ease or something in mathematics? So, that's where we need clarity because it's going to open another Pandora's box for us.
We found ourselves in a very peculiar position, a crossroads, I would say, when it comes to that. It opened up a space within where, on social media, so Kenyans, mathematics versus mathematics. But to this point, I think the commissioners still believe, and I think they have continued to buttress the point that the aggregation of the results that were declared is not equal to the actual votes that were cast to this point. That is their assertion.
But now, the elephant in the room is everybody is casting aspersions on Mr. Chebukati's number has not proved them to be, has not offered contrary numbers to say that Ruto won by this margin, but our own numbers verified by competent personalities shows the contrary. In fact, I was hoping that Azimio would present their numbers because believe you me, anybody with interest, slightest interest in Kenyan politics, both locally or at an international level, and with a basic calculator, has already done the tallying. I suspect those ambassadors and high commissioners, the intelligence agencies or the universities that offer maths at a higher level, all of them are done the tallying, so they know the numbers. So the question is, if you are running for President of the Republic of Kenya, you must have a tallying center as a bare minimum. Can you please give us your numbers? Or maybe we shouldn't be too harsh on them. Let's wait for the numbers probably to be presented as part of the petition.
All right. Yes, Dr. Ojwang, then Ishmael.
So mathematics is not a requirement. Neither is wrong mathematics a requirement. So it's in between. You don't need to be a mathematician, but we were not also looking for people with the wrong math. But even beyond that, I wanted to say that if I'm Azimio, I would not like the normalcy. I would not like seeing people calm. I would want to see people a little hyper, wounded, because things are moving so much to the other side of normalcy, including the parliament being open and all that. Now, the president-elect is not an idle term. If you look at the law on President Act, there is some powers already conferred by that title. For example, he is supposed to receive intelligent information, including from the military, NIS, as a law. And all public officials, in fact, I'm reading verbatim, are supposed to cooperate with him. And if they don't, it is it's a criminal offense.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's not an idle term. You are seeing stories in social media, those who have met him after that have found a different environment, presidential environment, so to speak. But generally, I'm all about electoral justice. The part that I'm struggling with is using petition only as an alternative to going to the street. It is okay, rather than going to the streets, to use petition, but to use it only as an alternative, that you might not have much more, but you are simply saying, rather than going to street, those are not the only option. One of the options is to concede. The other option is to wait for next time. So when we narrow it to only two options, that, you know, we praise you because rather than going to the street, you have gone to the court. To some extent, it's true. But again, we have seen other people concede. If you have a case and you think you have a case, hey, go for it. But let it not be simply that the world have offered you two alternatives, that either it is street or Supreme Court. You can choose to take neither and concede and move on. I just want to add that there is that third option there that can be taken. But finally, I think that this election, there is about 20 things that went wrong with 2017, starting from open the server, starting from you pronounce without seeing all the original Form 34A, moving to you pronounce before verifying all of them, moving to those provisional results that were text message were wrong and they admitted. And Chebukati went and said, I was actually relying on 34B, not 34A, because the DNA of this election is in 34A. So I think for IBC, they are in a very good place to that extent. And that is why I just like to be preachy a little bit and say, Kenyans, please lower your expectations. If something magic happened, that the Supreme Court pronounce, move even beyond whatever and say it is Raila, which I don't know why they won't say it's Mwaure or even Wajakoya. If they are saying it, why not Duncan?
Look, yes, right.
Those other three candidates.
Wakili Ishmael, even
but I think Mwaure already
considered.
And
through his way back.
Yeah, and Wajakoya as well. I mean,
yes.
Even said he wants, yes, supported Raila. So I think it is the two leading lights, William Ruto and Raila Odinga, who really might go to the Supreme Court. I want to come back to the IBC. There was a huge boardroom failure or manners of how the board should operate, by virtue of the fact that the four came out to speak at Serena, and they did not speak at the Uchaguzi Center in Bomas. These are commissioners. Now, one qualification is they are independent. By the way, they are like totally independent. They can come on the mic there in Bomas and say what they want to say. So my expectation was that Cherera and team would actually walk to the podium in the Uchaguzi Center and say, ladies and gentlemen, we have been tallying results. It's very unfortunate that at the tip end, we have been unable to agree. Therefore, starting now, we are not able to give you any further updates. I expected this right there at the center. And this now goes into, to talk about the competence of the kind of people you hire for sensitive offices. Even if you did not come to the mic and probably the police snatched the mic from you as a commissioner, that would speak quite a bit to the Kenyans. But the fact that you could not agree in the boardroom and then you decide now we will have to go elsewhere, speaks quite a lot of things. And I think I am not discrediting the content they have, because we will see it in court. And probably they will carry the day, by the way, for several other reasons. I will just mention one as I go on. But the major thing is there was a boardroom communication breakdown, completely. They would have come there and tell Kenyans, because they were always, addressing Kenyans, and then it was being transmitted to televisions and all that. They should have said, we are unable to agree. And based on that, it probably was going to put Chebukati on the spot, and he probably would not have announced the results that very moment. They would probably have been asked to meet again and try to, to look at the results and then announce. So There was...
Wakili, can you say perhaps, you know, from your expertise as you know, as a legal mind, are we in some sort of uncharted water when it comes to jurisprudence to this point? Because this is for a very first time where IEBC, the commission as an entity in itself, you know, we have, you know, the chairman and the 4 commissioners speaking from completely 2 different scripts, because we've never found ourselves in such a situation before.
No, Zainab, I think we are not in uncharted waters in terms of behavior. You know, rules and the law will never, like, try to carry you on a wheelbarrow or on a bike. It is still your own human thinking and intellect and wisdom, which you have to use within the environment of the law. But if you are saying it is funny that commissioners disagreed, that is new. But in terms of what you should do, you know, and this is where Professor will have to agree on this. This is where, as legal experts and lawyers, sometimes we mislead a nation. We talk about the section says this, the article says this, and then we stop there. The article cannot move itself. The law cannot do anything. It's a dead paper until a person breathes life to it. So I expected Cherera and the team to use the law to say, hey, you know, I have power to come here and talk to you. Now I want you to listen. We have been unable to agree. She did that at Serena. Well, that's okay. Her own reasons, we shall see them in their
But you do agree that the Constitution does not anticipate a situation where the Commission finds itself in right now when you have this split within the Commission?
No, I think the law anticipates that. I will tell you why. That is why it has given, that's why it has given responsibilities to, you know, it is the chairman who has to announce the results. So the Constitution anticipates that people may disagree, but it is the national chairman who should actually announce the results. So before I finish, Zainab, when I look at the judges of the Supreme Court, I actually write my own judgment sometimes. When I look at just who they are across the board, I write my judgment. I'm going to keep it in my phone until they make their own, because I don't have that right. These are conservatives, if you ask me. They are people, learned judges who have grown through the system.
Right.
They are, of course, the CJ was once a practitioner. Justice Nanaula was a practitioner. Njokindungu also an activist. Justice Ouko has come.
I think the only 2, which is Chief Justice Martha Koome and William Ouko, will be the first one. This will be their first presidential petition. The rest have actually had experience when it comes to
but
that.
Yeah, but when you look at what they have done before in the judiciary, they are completely planned. I mean, they have been in the system. That's what I want to say for the longest time. So when you, the first thing you see in them is independence of thought. In fact, in 2017 there was a unanimous decision. I am thinking that this time, this is just my own thinking, that you may have some judges write their dissent and the others write another decision. But no one should have any fear. You know, those Facebook, I saw Senior Counsel Ahmed Nasir saying they can actually do a judgment in a tweet. No one should be perturbed or surprised. No one should even worry. Neither Azimio nor Kenya Kwanza.
Right.
These, ladies and gentlemen, will have to be tenacious and go into the law and write. And it's not like there are so many new things being brought up here, but they will try to look into the meaning of things and actually come up with a very brilliant kind of judgment. So no one should really be worried about what we expect in the Supreme Court. It will not be a social media banter. It will be a serious listening to the pleadings. And this is why I'm worried. What has Azimio taken to the court? Because don't say we are limited from saying anything when you are presenting a presidential petition. Please put in all that you have to, because the judges must listen to it. Don't forget that judges' role is, they have a duty to sit and listen to whatever you bring to them.
Acheng, even as you answer, of course, just also probably give us, your sense, an idea in terms of what people have termed a situation that is quite unprecedented when it comes to that, split with the commissioners.
I think for me, I really look forward to a day when a candidate will not need to have their own tallying center. It is such an expensive affair, and it is a responsibility we vest on IEBC. they're not independent at just in English. It's not supposed to just be an English word. They're supposed to actually be independent in the actual sense of it, so that irrespective of whether you have resources or not, they actually act independently for you, so that the results they declare are actually trustworthy. Because not, I doubt More, for example, had an independent tallying, his own tallying center. I doubt Wajakoya had his own tallying center, but they should be confident enough that the commission will deliver for them. So I really, really look forward to the day that IEBC will announce results and we are all happy and comfortable and you're thinking, yeah, that is what I must have got. And I do not, and if I want to go to court, I have other evidence, but based on what IEBC already did.
But are we there yet, considering the fact and appreciating the fact that our elections history has been one that has been, you know, contested and highly, you know, emotive over the past elections that we've gone through in the country?
We're not there, and I don't think we're even going to get there in the next 10 years. It's a long way, because unfortunately for us also,
but it is hope. It is
hope
that you...
It is, I really look forward. I hope it will be there in my lifetime. Because the unfortunate thing about us also is that anytime you're presented with a set of rules or laws, you start to think how to work around them. And it becomes a challenge. So at any one time you think you have found a solution, but then we quickly find a way around it. And I think that's it. We wanted transparent systems. That was a major issue in 2017. We got transparent systems. They were uploaded. Yet here we still are, you know. So there are all sorts of accusations and counter-accusations now regarding the transparency. Now we have opaqueness. Now we are no longer talking transparency. Now we are speaking opaqueness.
Right.
So in the next election, it will be something else. But to the commissioners and how they spoke, I think they have tried to reach out. They tried, you remember that time when they had an issue, when I think it was ballot papers, and they tried to, ballot papers were coming into the country. And there was almost an exchange, and Chebukati asked which commissioner. You know, we don't all have similar courage to face up the person who said, it is me who said, you know. So, and then people are also grown up, So when you're faced with certain circumstances, you try to do what people would consider the adult thing. So you step aside and find a safe way to do things, which is what I believe the 4 commissioners did. They're trying to call out, there's a problem they have identified. They're communicating it in a very bad way. They just need to express themselves to somebody who can help them put their concerns into English. Because there's no way they just came out to address us if there's nothing. I suspect there's an issue. They just haven't found the right words to put.
Would you perhaps, yes, and I'll give Dismas the opportunity before we take a break. You know, there have been concerns perhaps as to why these commissioners never raised any alarm right from the very beginning of the process till the very end, and right before the declaration of the results, and that is when they decided to speak up. So we'll come back to Dismas, yes.
Okay. You see, my friend Ishmael here has presented a very good case. He probably wants to be an amicus. He's spoken about how commissioners should behave in the boardroom. So I invite him to present his case so that he can become an amicus. Now, Achengi has indicated and raised a very valid issue that she hopes at some stage you will not need to have these people to come and do the tallying. But you know, hope is not a strategy. It will never work. So the issue of trust must be maintained, and the only way to trust IBC systems is to have your own systems so that you can verify the results. And also she's raised a very powerful point that these commissioners could be having a very powerful case, but probably they have no capacity to communicate that case. Now one wonders, how do you become the commissioner, IBC, and you have no capacity to communicate? Can they not retain a communication consultant to put together their position in a nice news release or a speech and release it? Then number 2, when they discovered that the system is opaque, was it opaque in a manner as to render Mora's will invalid? Because if Chebukati created an opaque system so that now Mora's will is invalid, that is what they must tell us. And then number 3, I suspect they've been socialized through the electoral offenses. So they know what is right, what is wrong, what's legal, what is a criminal. Have they gone to any criminal or any law enforcement agencies to say that we are commissioners at IBC? But in the process of doing the presidential tallying and verification, 3 of our colleagues or the CEO or indeed Mr. Chebukati has gone out of line, and we believe that there are some offenses so that they can be investigated. Because believe you me, when you know the chairman is going to make a declaration at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, then you call for a news conference at an alternate venue. Essentially, you are competing with your chairman. That is a recipe for national disaster. In my view, considered view, their behavior was unpatriotic and reckless and a threat to national security. At that time, the entire world, not just Kenya, the entire world was waiting for Chebukati to make a declaration. Then you have 3 commissioners going to another venue and saying that we do not own those results. They did not even bother to tell us why they do not own the results. Because Kenyans are largely literate people. They've got capacity to understand issues. They should have broken it down to us that for these 3 reasons, we don't own those results. For these 3 reasons, those results are opaque. And from the comfort of Nairobi Serena.
I think for them, they came out, and of course, the second day gave out a much detailed brief as to why they said they disowned those results. One of them is the aggregation of the results. And secondly, accusing Chebukati to, you know, tantamount to being a dictator within the commission, saying that, you know, he came and with the results, final total results, and without giving them an opportunity to look at the results, went on and declared and wanted to declare the results.
I'm not sure whether there's an OB report.
Yes.
Is there an OB report?
Yes,
no, there was what the nation was waiting for was for the commissioners to come forward and announce results to the final constituency as they were earlier doing. And I think we had about 20 that were not announced yet. So we were expecting commissioners to come to the, you know, platform and say, we will not announce the 20. Now the chairman is coming to announce the final tally because we have finished verifying and tallying. I think that's where the issue is. That's why people are asking, what is this? Where are the numbers? We do not know. And I think in terms of communication, it is true what Dismas is saying. Really, I think the qualifications for IBC commissioners will have to be looked into and changed so that you get some madmen or madwomen, you know, people who can actually come out and say, no, he sikubali. But this business of waiting until the whole country, why it not for Raila Odinga and William Ruto, asking and urging their supporters not to bother, you know, fighting? I think we could now be in a messy situation. So I believe there was still, I insist, bad boardroom manners.
Which is why you must be an amicus.
I think we are really being unfair on these 4 commissioners. And especially if we look at the happenings after the elections in isolation. They didn't start raising issues then. There has always been a problem, and we have always spoken of the commission not working as a unit. That has been an issue, and we have known that the old commissioners and the new commissioners had not quite gelled. We were supposed to have intervened at that point. So we were just seeing the cook adding salt to food, and we know this food already has enough salt. For us to wait for the food to be served to say it is salty, I think that's unfair. We should have intervened when they started raising issues. Efforts, the church, the civil society, people should have come in to find out how do we address these issues, because we have an election at hand. We need you to be a united front at the point at which results you're going through the whole processes, E-Day and after E-Day activities. So for us to wait for things to manifest as they did and then start faulting them, and now starting to pick mathematics, English, communication, I think really it is really unfair on them, because they raised issues but we did nothing about those issues. And we even went the wrong way in appointing them. We waited for election year to appoint them. Remember, Kriegler made recommendations against this. Yeah,
so who's to blame on this? We'll come back to that. Dr. Ojwang, when we come back, I'll give you an opportunity to, you've been quite quiet. I know you've been jotting down those notes, and when we come back, we'll hear from you. This is AM Live. Stay with us. Talk to us as well. The hashtag to use on social media, specifically Twitter, is AM Live NTV, at Zainab Ismail, at NTV Kenya as well. Stay with us.
This is NTV.
At each stage of your business cycle, there are different opportunities and challenges. Has your business evolved and made strides to adapt and be the best in your field? Enter the 2022 Top 100 Mid-Sized Companies Survey and showcase how you have driven success at every stage of your business. Submit your entry at www.eastafricatop100.com. Survey closes on 9th September 2022. Top 100 SMEs. Be seated among the great.
Every Friday at 10 p.m., NTV is dubbed as the home to the biggest and most fascinating people on TV. We give you a fix of the latest trends in entertainment. Pack your eardrums with the freshest hits. And bring you the biggest names in the 254 and beyond. Energy, synergy, fun and flair. If it's hot, it's on the trend. If it's not, well... Catch this exhilarating show every Friday from 10 p.m. with the freshest trio, Osoro Biamono, the Scratch Master himself, DJ E, and your sassy homegirl, Amina Abdi Rabar. All this on the trend, only on NTV.
Mjambo wa Kenya, mimi ni Eric Smith, na kupata wimbo huu kama sikiza tune yako, bonyeza *811 *851#. Skiza na Nation, supporting local talents.
Boss, the printer of the guys who usually print our
Who will face the people, Simeon?
So
Simeon, answer my question. Who will face them?
You,
tell
sir.
me, will you?
You will, sir.
I will, that's right. Now, how am I supposed to tell them why the logo wasn't printed? Tell me!
I'm sure that you're very proud of your son, sir.
Yes, I am. I'm very, very proud.
Forever, my love.
The Nairobi Hospital Accident and Emergency Center is manned by well-trained doctors and emergency nurses who are focused at saving lives. With a network of labs, you're guaranteed of accurate medical test results. The Nairobi Hospital is a center of renal excellence, providing cutting-edge technology with over 10 dialysis machines.
All right, good morning. If you're just joining us, this is AM Live NTV as we are looking at what will be quite an interesting week ahead. Of course, any petitioner, including the Azimio One Kenya Coalition, has up until 2 p.m. today to file a petition challenging the declaration of William Ruto as president-elect by IEBC. And if not, of course, the swearing-in will be taking place. But, of course, with all indications, there most likely will be quite a battle at the apex court, that is at the Supreme Court, where the 7-judge bench will be sitting to hear that petition. Well, Dr. Ojwang, we were back to, the issue of the 4 commissioners, who dissented from that declaration. And, it's not the first time. I think in 2017, but this happened after the election, where we saw now the 4 commissioners who went away. We saw Rosalyn Akombe resign, and then the CEO then, was let go, and then the other 3 commissioners also left. Yeah. Is this a repeat of what we saw in 2017?
Probably, and even 2007, there was somebody who walked out, I remember, with the words, "My conscience cannot allow me to go on." Mm-hmm. It was Kip Kemoi, somebody. To their credit, their first line was things were going on very well. Mm-hmm. So they cannot go back to say things were going on very bad. right? They started by saying things were going on very well until this last day. So whatever they didn't, whatever had happened before, on their own admission, they said things were okay until the last day. So we have to just pick it from where they pitched it, that things went south from the last day. And we know that by that last day, the verification was over. There is no legal requirement. The Constitution talks of declaring the results. There is no legal requirement that even if you are mauling people and beating the heck out of everybody, they must still stand with a microphone and announce the results. There is no such a legal requirement against all dangers. But even so, remember it started, and indeed opaque is the word, because even before this, it started by, this is a crime scene and nothing more. So I come to a studio and I call it a crime scene, but I don't say what crime. And then I go on. We have agents. Then it come, I see 4 commissioners walking out and saying opaque, probably describing the crime scene call. So, and then we see people climbing up, mauling and beating Chebukati, and the security is looking the other way. And we are seeing the pronouncement. It is, you know, it was a day of light and darkness. You saw the American British ambassador stayed all night in the gallery, even though there was no tallying. What did they know? So I think that we saw a lot. But this is what Judge Ndungu said, because she's still in the Supreme Court in Raila 2017. Once the Constitution gives citizens the right to vote, the freedom to choose and conditions are created for the realization of that right. It is not the business of court to aid the indolent. Indolent is just a fancy word for the lazy. If party agents are required to be present, sign statutory form, and undertake any legitimate duty that is imposed upon them as part of political process in an election, then they are under obligation to do it. To fail to do it is not only to fail one's party, but also fail our democracy. The court must frown upon any such inaction, reluctance, and delay. A candidate or her agent cannot abscond duty from polling station and say it is up to IBC. And if you have accepted whatever you give me, then why are you protesting? That's Ndungu. She's still in the court. And then ask the court to overturn the election because of their failure to sign a statutory form. Every party in an election needs to pull their own weight. How clear can it be? To ensure that the ideals in Article 86 are achieved, that we shall once and for all have simple, accurate, verifiable, secure, accountable, transparent election. What she's saying, you must have an agent, you must have tallying center. Don't come here to us and telling us to overturn an election, yet you have been indolent.
Okay. Dr. Ojwang, it seems you were in the drama class, and I appreciate that. It's wonderful.
Yeah, but if this law thing fail, I'll go back to acting.
No, I mean, that was, I enjoyed that. But I mean, but just going back, still going back to these 4 commissioners, from where you sit, if they're enjoined in this case, would you say that disapproval would form a basis and perhaps even have
for rejecting the result
impact in the outcome of this legal battle?
Let me try answer that. One, you know, one of the commissioner like Elder Nyang'aya is my elder in church that I respect. And therefore, I know that whatever I'm saying, I'm restrained because Elder Nyang'aya has spoken to my class. Even when he was in amnesty, I hold him in high esteem. I do. In this case, the commission shall be represented. We already know the commission lawyer, which is Githu Muigai. They don't have an audience unless a door is opened. And that is why there are people who wanted to sue them so that they can trigger the process of removing them. In that case, they had now an audience to come defend themselves. But now, they do not come in because they are not interested parties. They are not. The commission is represented, and therefore I do not see on what basis they will swear in an affidavit. But even so, what I was reading about Justice Ngungu actually is from a Ghanaian case that had similar situation. Maybe I'm giving hint so much. It was a similar situation where the Supreme Court said, obviously, only one person can declare the results. The commission can come in where some places did not vote, some constituencies, and it might not affect the results. Then they have to vote whether the chair can announce the result or not. Not in a way that in your own admission you are saying the process has been smooth until the last day when verification is over. Finally, the commissioners are independent. They protect the independence of the people, but there is no law that envisions that the disagreement of the commissioners, whether for good reason, should have a bearing to Form 34A and the results in the polling station. Otherwise, you will just have commissioners do a referendum or flip a coin and give us the presidential winner. So it has zero effect in terms of who has won. That is a separate question. They can come in and help us understand who has not won or who has won, but to say that I disagreed, is those results do not belong to Chebukati. And you see, throughout the week, some of us who are good people, we are just good people, kept saying, please, do not blow whistles in Bomas polling station. Here, there is not even, it's simply verification and ticking things. And you have your agent. But who does not know, who lives in this country, who does not know by Wednesday that William Ruto was already surged ahead from the portal and the things were simply there. Verifiable, yes. Simple, yes. Accurate, yes. Because so far, even in their own anger, apart from the maths instance. So the maths instance is not the math genius that kicked in Cherar. It took 5 minutes. I was right here. Everybody say, no, that is 1,300, Miss Commissioner. It's not 100,000. So they are also making it very hard to love them. But we are working on it.
Okay, yes, Ishmael.
Professor has raised a very important issue, that presidential elections are final at the polling station. You can, in fact, at the particular polling station, maybe stream 1 and stream 2, they each record their own presidential. That's why we have about 46,000+ polling stations in the country. How practical is it to then, for the commission, to move into every polling station and announce results, which is why in 2017, and the Elections Act as it is, allows the commission to bring together those results. Now, as we look at the aspect of indolence, Professor has correctly elucidated, you need to appreciate the power of alternative wisdom and alternative cleverness. You see, this is why we live on Earth. Even your own child at home will lick sugar, but he will be like, me sijal fanya kitu. This is normal. This is life. That's how it is. So we cannot be very legalistic or technical on that. So what I just want to bring out is, these polling stations, as they transmitted the results, IEBC is supposed to confirm. That's why they verify. It's supposed to confirm that, oh yes, it is true from Magwagwa, from Mosambweni, from Nyando, it is true, this is what they did at the ground. That process is legal. And by the way, constitutional. So if anybody tampers with it during that process and gives an alternative wisdom, alternative cleverness, if I may say, then we go back to the problem of you have stolen the elections. And the only place I concur with Professor is on being lazy or taking time to come out and say our presidential elections as voted in Muranga are not being brought in the same way they were voted. So I think that's what now the court is going to look at and determine. Yeah.
Even with that, so the burden of proof suddenly falls on the shoulders of the petitioners. Yes. But there have been talks, you know, so maybe you can clarify that for us, that can the court order for a recount of the votes? So we know the court can either nullify the election or can, you know, uphold that particular election.
Straightforward for our viewers, the court cannot recount. There is a big problem, however. You must have this exercise done in less than 7 days. If you say it is 7 days, you say it 14 days. If you look at the time of filing, and then the other side is given 3-4 days to reply, the court has literally 2 to 3 days to listen to the petition. So how practical is it for the court to say, by the way, they did that in 2017, when a select, yes, you have to sample because you cannot do a recount on, of course, with systems you can try.
Is it a matter of resources or is it within the law?
No, it's time. It's timeline. The Supreme Court can order a recount. But you order a recount, you know, you saw Bomas took 7 days and they were still not so sure if they have recounted everything. Right. So they are going to spend maybe 3 weeks, 5 weeks to actually do a honest national recount. So so that is I think that's the bottleneck. They may want to have a recount, and if they do select polling stations, I think William Ruto is, I've always said, is a very fast scorer, by the way. Now we have seen it's probably Messi. Is Messi of Barcelona. He can very quickly do his math, and I think it will be confirmed that he has won. But in terms of a genuine approach to tallying the results, Professor, everyone should be given a chance. Whether you are in Azimio, whether you are in Kenya Kwanza, everyone should be given a chance. And we should be able, as citizens, to see that you have verified all results in the country. You don't have to, you know, keep 30 and then come up and say, these are the results. This is the concern of many people, at least.
Okay, Ojwang.
On the recount?
Right.
Well, actually for me it was also a question. I was wondering, so apart from just nullification and upholding, is a recount possible? And can the court just be convinced and declare and redeclare and declare someone else?
Well, in fact, I don't think you're asking me, but the Supreme Court's powers are limited to either nullifying those elections or confirming that the tallying, the verifying and tallying was okay. And they have no business to declare who is the winner. The winner is declared by the people of Kenya at the polling stations.
All right.
And at the point of, if I may?
Yes, yes, of course.
At the point of, say, if a recount were to be ordered, would we then go back to confirming seal numbers and all that? And where there were no agents, what then happens? What would it look like?
Professor, do we have that time?
No, Professor has actually read the relevant part of the ruling, that we are not supposed to be indolent, and has gone to explain to the lazy Kenyans that it actually means lazy. So I don't think that would be a challenge. However, in my view, if there's going to be a need of a recount, it's possible to create to get some bright people together, local and international, and create a shift system for them to quickly go through those numbers. I don't think it will be a logistical nightmare if resources are available.
So it would be a recount of the actual ballot papers?
Well, again, I suspect that the Supreme Court may need...
the best case, you know, you have to give each side their best case. Their best case appears, Wakili, that they are going after Form 34A because they know that is what matters. And they are saying that, you know, these forms were probably tampered with and these are not our results. So if they go to specific places and ask recount for some specific counties, whether the court will give it to them, but you see, court is also not in the business of let's follow and see what falls off. You must convince them that there is something there. Not that, you know, just throw everything on the wall, see what sticks, then we count them.
For us, I think after the petition is filed, if we can have a look at the pleadings, you can see what is Azimio praying for, and then you can actually make that analysis better off. I think Zainab, you can have us again, maybe.
All right, of course, yes, we'll certainly, and of course it will be actually much better and putting everything into context when we're actually looking at the petition itself that has been, you know, taken to the court. Allow me to just mention this, so there's this issue, and you know, it's been a matter of conversation for quite some time, ever since the results were declared, and it is on the pollsters' research. Well, we've seen that in the run-up to the election that Raila Odinga was leading in all the published pollsters across the country. I believe all the three of them. But what happened? I mean, what happened? Well, there must have been a step. Was it the method that they used? Or were we putting our trust too much on the pollsters when it comes to predicting the outcome of the results?
The opinion polls, especially the ones for Tifa, in my view, the last one was largely accurate, because at the end of it, there was a proviso that these results may change depending on the turnout. So the turnout was the key issue. So they kept on giving the numbers, saying if elections are held today, but the last opinion poll, they indicated that it will be informed by the turnout. And that was the key determinant. Like, for instance, look at Coast. Coast, understand the turnout was 49%. If there would have been a bigger turnout, and Azimio says that is their stronghold, maybe it would have changed the matrix. In Kakamega, I think it was 59%, so the turnout was not as good. So, in my view, the results were, I mean, the opinion polls are largely accurate because they gave those provisos that the candidates must invest in getting out the people to come and vote, and then they must invest in the election infrastructure. There are allegations made by several teams that in some polling stations, the agents were missing in action. Others were not given lunch, they were not given water, so they went back home dejected. Yeah, it's true. Actually, that in some polling stations, agents of Coalition A were being given lunch by agents of Coalition B. That now we are friends, let's go and have nyama choma, let's go and have a drink. Maybe people absconded their responsibilities and duties. So I think for me, the opinion polls are largely accurate. But again, understand why some people are dancing, saying that these pollsters are never accurate. No, they gave those provisos. So if anybody bothered, they'll know. And then the question about tallying, because I was in Strathmore where I did accounting. If you have the same primary numbers, you give it to any accountant in Kenya, in Italy, or Uganda, you'll come out with the same results. So when you have this form 34A, you give it to a Kenyan, a Chinese, whatever it is, you will still come out with the same numbers. So if that is the only strategy they have, then probability of success is almost zero.
And the reason why I raised this issue was on the issue of voter turnout. Now, we've had issues of, and I think if you're there, there's a report there by Brian Obuya which looked into some of the issues that might arise from this case, and not to preempt or get into the merits of the case if it happens to be in court, but there was this issue of abnormal voter turnout in some of the areas perceived to be, you know, President-elect William Ruto's strongholds, where they say that, you know, the President-elect managed to get more votes than the other, you know, 5 elective positions. So, for example, the president-elect would get, like, let's say, in an area where there were 7,000 registered voters, he would get perhaps 6,000, you know, and then you're going to have the governor receive probably 2,000 votes. So, this disparity, would it be a substantive issue to look at?
Well, you know, when people went to the ballots, they were actually participating in 6 elections.
Right.
So there's a very high chance that there are people who don't care about the other 5 positions. So they don't care about the governor, senator, women rep, MCA, and decide to vote only for the president. However, you must have an equivalent number of rejected or spoiled ballots, because it's an offense. You can't get out of the, you can't live with those papers.
Right.
You can't tear them, you can't hide them in your shoes or whatever it is. So there must be an equivalent number of rejected ballots.
Right.
But if there is a discrepancy, then that is a very fertile ground for a very solid petition. Then one may easily say that, now what Professor was talking about here, cooking, has been introduced. But again, we know that most of these, I mean, the IBC documentation had the QR codes. So again, it would take a magician to play around with those QR codes so that to ensure that you play with the entire system.
All right. Yes, Dr. Ojwang.
Yeah, briefly about the polls and the polls, the pollsters. Poll is a good science. It's the people who lie. And the reason polls become important is because we use science to generalize things. We use science to say the chances of somebody catching maybe cancer is this much, and then we come with intervention based on that. So it will be amiss for one to come and say, me, I did my thing, subject to turnout. Surely, election is about turnout. So if you did not factor turnout in your data, then what were you doing? In other words, you misled. And look at the polls, generally the local poll, if they were perfect or if they had error, they were all pointing at a certain direction. And that is very hard in a random science, because somebody might have different sample size before they generalize, but the way they were perfectly showing Azimio towards a narrative. Remember those polls we saw on billboards the last day now? The poll have declared me that I will win. That is what brings reasonable doubt. And to me, as a consumer of science and social science, poll is just social science like law. So there is nothing that we can't comment about. What the pollsters should first do is to search their souls, consider the value of their science, and ask one simple question: why did we get it wrong?
Right.
What was the confounding variables that we did not see? But as Mokuab said, you know, the issue of KIMS have resolved a lot of things, because you find that everybody had to be physically present. And a few instances where people were not physically, who voted manually, there were forms. So it becomes very hard, because if you went to polling stations, you had to swipe in order to get into the KIMS, and it was up to 700, and then you get their data. So for one to say that they are ghost voters, for example, they will have to do two things. You know, there was the digital and there was manual. How on earth this election thief managed to steal your manual perfectly and steal the digital? Then be very worried. This person might even steal you, because at that rate, this person can steal everything. And I was saying, just for effect argument, you trace the vote of Martha Karua from our polling stations up to Bomas, and you go to the KIMS and you see the people who are there, and then you wonder, how did this gangster come to your polling station and simply replace the will of your villagers with their own will? And then you see that it's a little bit hard narrative to push. All dreams are possible, but not all dreams are realizable.
All right. Let's have a Cheng then, Wakili.
I think the issue with having excess people voting only happens in strongholds. And it's because it's a question of collusion. You agree that in this room, we are all supporting a Cheng, you know? So nobody has a different position. So perhaps the issue would be, and why maybe Achieng would be the only one who has many votes and the rest don't, is because at the lower level, the other agents don't agree. So in our lack of wisdom, we decide, okay, fine, let's then only vote for Achieng. Because wisdom would dictate that, okay, let's all divide the rest equally then. So nobody loses and the other one does not gain. Now, if you decide you want to steal an election in favor of a particular candidate. So it is possible, as long as you have all agreed, and the manual system is an option, which is what Chebukati was trying to fight before. He really, really pushed. He didn't want this because he knows in a stronghold, this is likely to happen.
All right.
Anyway, back to the pollsters. They don't do it to tell us who Chebukati will declare the winner. I think they do it to sort of assist the candidates plan better. But what usually happens is that you celebrate too early, we misapply the advice they give, so that if you're placed ahead, you get comfortable. But the person who's placed behind then works harder and perhaps catches up with the other one. And maybe this is what came into play, because you have to go back to the boardroom and see, so how do we close this gap? If you're ahead, I mean, you're ahead, you're in the lead. So for you, you probably don't need to do anything more. So, and I think they also indicated that they are week to elections, they don't do anything.
All right.
And a lot may have changed within the week to elections. And that's why a number of them may have got it wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I know there's much to discuss that, but Wakili, I'll also just give you
Why
a minute.
Crucifying pollsters? I think if you look at the numbers, it's 7.1 and it's 6.9. They were actually, and there's always a margin of error. I think they were correct.
Right.
And then lastly, if there are any excess votes found in any polling station, whether they belong to your or my candidate, particularly for presidents only and not the other seats, these will be declared illegal, and it can be a ground for a nullification.
All right. Well, it will be quite an interesting week, and of course, this afternoon we'll see if Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition will be challenging that election outcome, the presidential election outcome. And all right, so we will be certainly looking forward to that, and of course all eyes will be at the Supreme Court. Thank you so much, Ishmael Nyaribo, lawyer, political analyst, Chieng Osogo, elections and governance analyst, Dismas Mukua, political risk analyst, and Dr. Duncan Ojwang, human rights advocate, also Dean, Africa Nazarene University School of Law. Asanteni sana, lady and gentlemen, for joining us this morning to have this conversation. I know time is very kidogo, but we certainly hope we'll continue with the conversation as we trade our eyes at the Supreme Court. Thank you once again. I've seen a lot of comments here on Twitter. Let's continue having that conversation. We'll be sampling more tomorrow morning. My name is Zainab Ismail. Have yourself a good morning. When we come back in just a few moments, Winnie Lubembe will take us through your world. Stay with us.